Good afternoon, pilot teachers, and good afternoon, students. Thank you. Sit down. Okay, I gave you some activities to work on, and the activities were basically to look at the corrections that were supposed to have been done for those exercises on transmigration. So we'll double check very quickly because we have done discussions on those questions already. But to check and to ensure that you have got the information in your exercise book, we'll go through it quickly as part of our introduction to the lesson. Okay, we're looking at transmigration as one of the possible solutions that the government of Indonesia has taken to ensure that population pressure, especially on Java, is actually reduced. We must also bear in mind that transmigration is not the only solution to minimizing or solving the population problem on Java. The other solution has been family planning and birth control. Looking at transmigration itself, we have a photograph or a picture now. And that picture or photograph should give us a good indication or idea, especially of the standard of living for the transmigrants to the outer islands of Indonesia. We have a farmer's house on a transmigration project in Sumatra. You can look at generally the environment, look at where the house is actually built in relation to the physical environment, that is vegetation and also landform. And maybe you could note the isolation also of the transmigrants once they are actually out there on plots of land that have been actually assigned according to that policy transmigration. Some of the questions that we were asked or we looked at in our last lesson was to define what transmigration is. From the monitor, transmigration is generally the movement of people from densely populated islands to the sparsely populated islands of Indonesia. Also note the corrections that you should have done for those different activities or exercises. The second question that we also looked at, for what reasons are the Indonesians following a policy of transmigration? We had a couple of alternatives. The first one, to reduce the population pressure on the densely populated island of Java, to increase food supply or food production, to reduce food imports so that Indonesia or Java can become a little bit more self-sufficient and self-reliant, and also to develop the outer islands of Indonesia beside Java and Bali. Also, the concept of Germanisation was introduced here, whereby in Irian Jaya especially, where the Java race is actually, or the Java people are sent out there to Irian Jaya so that they can outnumber the Melanesian indigenous people of Irian Jaya and ensure that Irian Jaya stays as part of Indonesia through that policy or process of Germanisation. We also looked at some of the problems that are experienced by the transmigrants, and some of the answers that were given were very good. We looked at cultural differences between the people moving from perhaps the urban and the town areas of Java into the rural setting of the outer islands. So definitely there will be cultural differences. We also mentioned that there is a need for the transmigrants to actually be able to adapt to the new environment they are moving into. We looked at the need for equipment, materials, capital, especially money, so that the transmigrants can actually be able to survive out there in those areas they have been sent to. There could be land disputes and land conflicts because we are looking at new groups of people moving into areas where people are already settled. So there may be disputes and conflicts over land. Also, the lack of skills to farm in the new areas. We also discussed the fact that sometimes perhaps the transmigrants may feel that they are isolated from their families and from where they have actually originated from as a result of the isolation and remoteness of the areas they have been sent to. Those are some of the problems that the transmigrants might face when they are moved to the outer islands of Indonesia. Some of the islands that the transmigrants are sent to: Sulawesi, Borneo, especially Kalimantan, New Guinea, Irian Jaya, and Sumatra. These are some of the islands that the transmigrants are actually sent to. Then we came to the concept of Germanisation. And from the definition that was given, it was mentioned that Germanisation is basically to do with increasing the number of Java race settling mainly in Irian Jaya, thus outnumbering the number of indigenous population of Melanesia. And the main reason for that concept is to ensure that Irian Jaya remain a part of Indonesia. We all know that Irian Jaya is actually made up of the Melanesian race. The indigenous people are the Melanesian race. And to ensure that Irian Jaya remain part of Indonesia, the concept or the idea of Germanisation has been put in place. It is not a policy in the government of Indonesia, but it is a concept that is actually supported by a good number of people in or on Java. And then we had the question of, in your opinion, is it possible for the transmigration policy to succeed? We were able to look at both sides. We said yes, it was possible for that policy to succeed because it will be getting assistance from the government. And also if the government and the people would like to minimize the population pressure on the core zone, then perhaps a policy of such should be in place. We also looked at perhaps the policy may not succeed, and the reason being that we were going back to all of those problems that have been discussed in Part C or question number 3, whereby we looked at, say for example, if we go back to C, cultural differences, need to adapt to new environment, need for equipment, material, capital, and etc. And because of those problems, then perhaps the policy may not succeed. I have distributed a worksheet, and that worksheet then contains the summary of the work on transmigration. Spend time to look at it, and also paste that information into your exercise book, as it will serve as the main points or the summary points for that topic or subtopic. Any queries or questions you'd like to ask then with regards to transmigration as part of the topic on migration before we move on to our last subtopic for this booklet, and that is urbanization. Questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then we are going to move on. And into your exercise book now, I'd like you to put on the subtopic, which is urbanization. And that subtopic will also be the last topic that we are going to actually look at and cover in our booklet. A study of a densely populated area in a developing nation, Java. Okay, so into your exercise book, you can make note of the subtopic, urbanization. Let's look at urbanization, and we are going to look at urbanization in the context of what we are covering on the case study of Java. Okay, on page 19 of your booklet will contain the information for the work on urbanization, and it continues to page 22, which is the last page of our booklet. Urbanization. One can define urbanization as the process of urban growth. A lot of times when we think about urbanization, we are looking at or thinking about towns and cities. Definitely, if we are thinking towns and cities, we are correct. But when we look at the definition of urbanization, it is to do with the process of urban growth. And when we look at the process of urban growth, we are looking at certain features or factors that contribute to making a place becoming a town or a city, because all of those are included in what we call the process of urban growth. Therefore, if we just say urbanization or urbanization is to do with towns and cities, we might not be fully correct. But if we do say that urbanization is to do with the process of urban growth or the process whereby a city or a town develops or grows, then definitely the word urbanization there is defined. When we look at urbanization in the context of Indonesia, especially Java and Jakarta, we also note that urbanization in the developing countries of the world is mainly to do with the push and the pull factors. The reason for why urban areas or towns and cities grow, and also the reason for why many people migrate or move into the towns and cities, in developing countries especially, is due to those two important factors, which are the push and the pull factors. Perhaps if one goes back to looking at urbanization in the developed countries of the world, you would have noted that in England or London, the movement of people from the rural areas into the urban areas was a direct response to what we call industrial revolution. Also at the same time, the urban structure of those developed countries were already well established to cater for the influx of the population into the urban areas. Whereas in the developing nations today, urbanization is mainly as a result of those two very important factors, which are the push and the pull factors. Do we all know what the push and the pull factors are? Okay, we're going to do some work now, and that work will involve discussion and also defining what pull factors are. At the same time, you will be required in your discussion to make a list of some of the examples of pull factors. Similarly, you are required to look at the definition to what push factors are and also give some examples of push factors. I'm going to give you at least 10 minutes, and in the 10 minutes, I would like you to do those two exercises or activities on the monitor, and I would like you to work in groups to come up with your answers. And then we will go right around the class to check what you have got for your answers to those two questions. Okay, define, first of all, what push factors are, then define what pull factors are. Make a list of examples of push factors and examples of pull factors. Okay, we are going to look at the discussion then of the pull factors and the push factors. But before we do that, let's start off with the definition. Okay, from your discussions, would someone now like to give us a definition to what pull factors are? Shelley. Kali.
Pull factors, they're things that attract people to move to a particular place. For example, the cities or the towns attract the people from the rural areas to move due to the better living standards and jobs and etc.
Okay, good. The first part is asked for to give the definition. She's given us the definition, and she has also given us some examples. And we'll look at the examples a little bit later, but now let's look at the definition. The definition that is given is definitely correct. The word attract, very important. It has to be in your definition, because when we look at pull factors, they are things which or that attract people to move to a particular area. So if you are attracted to go to a particular area, then those factors that are actually attracting you are pull factors. The word attract is important that we have it in there. Thank you, and well done for giving us the definition. The key word to look for is attract. How about push factors? Someone to give us a definition to what push factors are. Rebecca, your definition to push factors.
Push factors are factors which influence or force people to leave an area or particular place.
Okay, very good. We've used two words there, force or influence people to live to a particular place. Okay, because we've already used the word push factors, instead of using factors again, perhaps we'll say things. Okay, so we're looking at things which persuade or force people to move out of an area or to move out of a particular place. If you have been forced to move out of an area or a particular place, then perhaps there are factors which are force or push factors that are making you having to leave that particular area. The words persuade or the words force are very important, as they are the key word to identify the difference between push and pull. Now let's look at the examples, as you were supposed to also discuss. Let's look at some of the examples for the pull factors. Examples of pull factors. Noel, could you give us a couple, and then the rest we can include also if he misses out on his misses out from his list.
Attractiveness of a community, amenities, greater variety of employment.
Okay, we're looking at variety and also greater variety of employment. Is that what you mentioned? And the first one was attractiveness of the community. Would you like to explain a little bit more on what you mean by attractiveness of the community?
Physical, the behavior of this good community itself.
Okay, we're looking at the people, is that right? Are we looking at the people or are we looking at the environment? Okay, perhaps if the people are more friendly, their attitude towards maybe acceptance and accepting other people and how maybe they carry on within the community can also influence people to or feel attracted to going to that area. Okay, it's correct. Do we all understand what he means by the greater variety of employment? There is a lot of employment opportunities available, which attracts also people to go to a particular area or place. Okay, good. Let's look at other examples. Anyone else with other examples of pull factors? Silo.
Better healthcare systems. Better healthcare systems.
Okay, we're looking at better health services, perhaps that are provided in an area can also attract people to go to that particular area or region, correct? Any other examples? Bill?
Better infrastructure, such as education.
Okay, we're looking at better infrastructure. Sometimes the physical infrastructure of an area also attracts people to go there. Say, for example, a lot of high-rise buildings, a lot of buildings made of modern material also attracts the people to come to that particular area. So when we look at infrastructure, we can include buildings. We can also include things like water supply, sanitation, roads, and etc., which can also all come under the term or concept infrastructure. Okay, good. Any others that attract people? Marian?
Better living standards.
Okay, we're looking at living standards. Higher or better living standards also is an attraction for people, yes, to go and to live in a particular area. I think a lot of people, they also see this as an important factor for them to actually move from one place to another, better or higher living standards. Any other pull factors? Val?
Higher wages.
Okay, we're looking at higher wages, definitely yes. A lot of people, they migrate Perhaps if we look at those who are skilled and also highly educated people, they tend to move to areas where they are able to get higher wages from their skills and knowledge and qualifications, yes. So higher wages is definitely one of those attractive packages for people to migrate or to move to a particular place. Catherine, other examples?
Education.
Education, what's wrong with education?
Facilities.
Okay, so we look at education. It's important when we are talking about pull factors and push factors that we do not just write down education and we do not just write down living standards and we do not just write down health services, because they could also be part of the push factors. If there is lack of educational facilities, then it becomes a push factor. If there is lack of health services, then it becomes a push factor. So it's important that we put in words like better or higher to make it a pull or a push factor. So if it is going to be a push factor, then it will have to be like lack of educational facilities, lack of health services, or lack of medicine. And if we just write down the words education and health, it might not explain really what we are, where we are making reference to, whether it be push or pull. And that's the reason why I ask, what's wrong with education? And you're saying better education, therefore it becomes a pull factor. Any other factors that we can also include? Gideon.
Gold rush.
Gold rush, correct? Example in Papua New Guinea, during the time of exploration, we had some of the people exploring also noted that they were able to find gold in certain parts of the country, therefore they were attracted to go and maybe mine or obtain those minerals. So gold rush, definitely. People who move in search of gold, they are not moved by force. They go there by choice. Therefore, it is a pull factor. Okay, beside gold rush, any other examples of factors which can be pull? Kiran.
Trying to get married.
Intermarriages, sometimes yes, definitely. People going out there on the social prospect, perhaps going to get married, looking for their partners, and it might be one of those things that is attracting them to that particular place or area. Okay, I've just put it down as intermarriages. I hope that will explain what Kiran is actually trying to get at. Okay, any other factors that we can also include for pull factors? Luisa? No? Doreen? Elsie? If there are no other factors, then we'll move on. We'll have the last one, Ovio.
Going out to clubs,
Sorry?
going out party.
Party, discos, sports, all of those to do with social. Okay, social amenities. Okay, we have discos and we have party places and pubs and bars and sporting activities and sport fields and gymnasiums and swimming pools and all of those that people are also attracted to. Maybe in the village you might not have access to those things because they are not provided. But when you come to maybe a town or a city, most of those things would actually be provided. And this could be some of the things that are attracting people to come into the towns and cities especially. Okay, the social amenities, and you can make a put some examples of those social amenities as nightclubs, pubs, hotels, maybe disco arenas and places like that. Those are all part of the social amenities. Good. We move on now to looking at examples of push factors. Okay, Elsie will give us an example now of push factors. At least one example of a push factor.
Natural disasters.
Okay, we look at natural disasters. Would you like to give us some examples of natural disasters?
Famine or volcano.
Famine? Some examples. Famine is one. Any others? Okay, Brendan is going to help. Beside famine.
Earthquake. Earthquake.
Earthquakes. So we get all the people from East New Britain should be moving out of there because of earthquakes. The disasters that are actually caused by earthquake will definitely force people to also leave. Yes, definitely. He's correct. Any others? Salesi, examples of natural disasters besides famine and earthquakes?
Tidal waves.
Okay, tidal waves. Okay, if you want to be specific, then we say tsunami, correct? Floods, okay, good. Okay, and many more that we can also make note of. Note, famine, earthquakes, tidal waves, or tsunami. We have floods, volcanic eruptions, landslides, cyclones, and etc. Drought, yes, would be another example. Rise in sea level could be another example. And many other natural disasters where people don't have control over occurs. That's when people may be forced to actually leave their area to go and find areas for shelter, and not only that, to find better living standards to get away from those disasters. Okay, that is one of the examples, and we've made a list of all the different maybe sub examples that come under natural disasters. We move on. Any other push factors that we can also include beside natural disasters? Christopher. Can you pass that mic down?
Wars and conflicts.
Okay, very good. Yes, we look at wars and conflict. We don't have to actually go far to find out about wars and conflicts. A lot of conflicts occur and happen in our own country. Say, for example, we have the Bougainville crisis. We also have perhaps in the certain highlands provinces of the country where there are conflicts, political conflicts that are occurring. When we look at wars, yes, wars around the world, we read about them and we see them in papers or on the television all the time. Those are some of the reasons for why people are forced to actually leave their area to go elsewhere, mainly to find safety so that they do not get injured or killed from those human factors. Okay, we move on. Any other examples of push factors? Ovio, thank you.
Due to overpopulation.
Okay, good. High population. We're doing something on transmigration in Indonesia. And definitely, where we have a high population, so much stress and strain may be put onto the resources and the land in a particular area can also result in people having to move. We come back to Papua New Guinea. Yes, in parts of Papua New Guinea whereby there are a lot more people living and we are running out or short of land because of the number of people that they have in a particular area, people are also forced to move or to migrate to go elsewhere. That reminds me of the next example that we can also put in, and that is, land shortage can also be a push factor. Not enough land. Francis, another example of a push factor?
Unfertility of land. Unfertility of land.
Okay, again, very good. We've looked at the case study of Java, and we found out that a lot of people are actually living on that particular island of Java because the soils are very fertile. And because of the fertility, it is attracting a lot of people, and not only that, it is one of the densely populated islands in the world. But if the soils are not very fertile, then what happens is people are not able to cultivate or grow their crops, so that means they might be forced to move or migrate elsewhere. So if the soils are not fertile, it could definitely be an example of a push factor. Renagi, can you give me another example?
Lack of medical services.
Okay, good. We're looking at the opposite now for the pull factors, and we're looking at the lack of health and educational facilities and services, whereby it is lacking and there is no proper health and educational facilities, perhaps in a particular area, people might be forced to actually migrate or move out. So if we look at some of these things that are mentioned here on the pull factors, and if we perhaps look at the opposite to them, then we might end up having the push factors. So we can double check, and whatever we have left out, we can also include on our list for the push factors. Okay, I hope you have also made note of those, and from the discussions, I hope you are able to work out now the difference between pull factors and push factors. Those two factors are very important when we look at urbanization and migration, because as I've mentioned in the beginning, in the developing countries of the world, including Indonesia, the pull factors and the push factors are what are contributing to the process of urban growth, which is urbanization. Coming to Papua New Guinea, definitely, most of our people who are attracted to come to live in towns and cities are mainly attracted as a result of the pull factors. But at the same time, a lot of our people are also forced to leave their rural areas to come into towns and cities because of the lack of perhaps better educational services, health facilities, employment opportunities, and all of those may be lacking in the rural areas. And those are what are attracting them off, not attracting, but forcing them to leave to come into the towns and cities. With that information from our discussion, that will also bring us to the end of our lesson. I would like you to make note of your homework beside making note of the discussions. And your homework is going to be to finish off now our work on the booklet on the case study of Java. You are required to read the rest of the information, which contains samples and specific case studies or examples of urbanization on Java on page 20, 21, and 22. And then there are also activities based on those readings on those pages that you will be required to actually complete in your exercise book. And that will be what I would like you to do for your homework. Okay, class, that also brings us to the end of our lesson. If you can stand up now, please. To the pilot teachers, our keyword for lesson 150 is pull factors. Good afternoon and thank you, students. Okay, don't forget our test is on this Friday, and don't forget your assignments are due in